Good evening, YouTube. Welcome back to the channel. This is IMAX Sports and another football video, and today I'm going over my Week 4 power rankings for the 2022 NFL season. The NFL season is finally starting to solidify. Some of the teams we're starting to figure out where each of the teams lay, which teams are the best in the league, which teams are the worst in the league, but the middle's still really convoluted. So let's get right into it. First off, we have the Texans at 32, we have the Jets at 31, we have the Raiders at 30, and we have the Seahawks at 29. Three of these teams have had fluke games, or what I call fluke games, so far this season. The Jets barely made a comeback against the Browns because they didn't run out the clock. The Seahawks beat the Broncos in Week 1 in a really high emotion, high pressure game, and the Texans were able to tie the Colts Week 1. They still don't have a win yet, but that was a surprising tie Week 1 against Indianapolis. All three of these teams I expected to be some of the worst teams in the league, and so far I have not been extremely surprised by how they've played. The Raiders, though, have joined this category, being 0-3. Their schedule has been fairly tough so far. They played the Chargers, they played the Cardinals, and then this week they played another challenging opponent. I don't exactly remember who it is currently. But anyways, the Raiders really have been unsurprising this season. I expected them to be considerably better. I really wasn't expecting a whole lot, to be honest, but I expected them to be better than this. They have had a hard schedule so far, but the Arizona game they really should have won. And they've been putting up a fight, but it just hasn't been enough. And I think, until they win a game, they're not going to get out of the dumpster fire. Derek Carr has been unsurprising with Devontae Adams, and that connection really should be better. Next, we have the bad category. We have the Panthers at 28, the Washington football team at 27, the Falcons at 26, and the Steelers at 25. I almost put the Falcons at 25 because they really have played some decent games. They played a really decent game Week 1 against the Saints. They played another really decent game last week, and then this week they got their first victory of the season. They are currently 1-2. I don't think that they're going to do a whole lot, but their offense has looked a lot better than I expected it to this far in the season, and I think that they do have some potential for the rest of the year. I think that they are not going to, again, I don't think they're going to be going very far, but they were able to beat Seattle, which is better than nothing, and it was a pretty solid game. The Panthers really haven't been great so far this year. They were able to win their first game of the season this week after losing the first couple of weeks of the season. They beat the Saints in a surprising upset. But again, it was a divisional matchup. I don't put a whole lot of stock into that, and they really haven't looked great until this point. Washington lost their second game of the season to the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, their offense has looked okay so far this year. Carson Wentz has looked pretty decent the first couple of weeks, but this week he looked really bad. Washington, I'm not expecting a whole lot from them. And then with the Steelers, they won against the Bengals Week 1, and then TJ Watt got injured, and they've looked horrendous since then. They lost to the Patriots, although they did almost come back. And then this week, the Steelers just looked really bad against the Browns in Thursday Night Football. The next category here is disappointing. We got the Saints at 24 and the Patriots at 23. I thought the Saints were going to be better. I was really high on the Saints this year. I was expecting more from them. I thought it was going to be an exciting season. So far, they've disappointed. Their only win is against Atlanta by 1 point. Not very impressive so far. The Patriots' only win so far is against the Steelers by 3 points. Also not very impressive considering Atlanta's 26 and the Steelers are 25. So the Saints are 24 and the Patriots are 23. Other than that, both of them have 2 losses, 2 decent teams. Patriots, 2 of their teams are top 5 in the league. The Saints, one of their losses was good, one of them against the Panthers. So that also helps the Patriots' case a little bit, I guess. But, yeah, neither of these teams have been as good as I thought they're going to be. And a lot has to do with their offense being very inconsistent and turning the ball over a lot. Next category is whatever this is. Big combination of teams I thought were going to do good and teams I thought were going to do bad. We got the Bengals at 22, we got the 49ers at 21, we got the Bears at 20, we got the Lions at 19, and we got the Browns at 18. Bengals, they lost to... they've only beaten the Jets. They've only beaten the Jets so far. So yeah, in theory, they should be below the Patriots and the Saints, but they've had tougher opponents. They had the Steelers with TJ Watt, and then they had the Cowboys. But the reason why they're not lower is because Mac Jones is injured, and again, they were in the Super Bowl last year, so that does give them a little bit of benefit. 49ers, NFC champions last year, or NFC championship game last year, are also at 21 because they really have had an unimpressive season this year, and they lost to the Broncos, who have also had a very unimpressive season, barely beating the Texans. So, yeah, I thought that their season was going to turn around when Jimmy Garoppolo became the starter again, but they've lost to the Bears and the Broncos, and neither of those are very impressive teams. And they only beat they only beat Seattle. So, yeah. Again, the Bears, they beat the 49ers, and they beat another not great team. I forgot exactly who it was, but the Bears, they got destroyed by the Packers, and they beat two teams that were close games that they either should have won or it was okay for them to win. I really am not sold on the Bears yet, but that's why they're at 20. 19 is the Lions. I really want to put them higher. I'm a huge Amon-Ra St. Brown fan. I'm very biased towards the Lions. I think that they are better than 19, but I need to quell my biases a little bit because they did lose their second game to the Vikings. They have lost to the Vikings and Eagles, who are two of the better teams in the league, two top 10 teams, so it's fair, but they also haven't beaten a solid team yet. They beat Washington, so yeah. I need to see more from the Lions before I can put them any higher, but I think 19 is fair. As for the Browns, they could be 3-0 right now. They haven't had any impressive victories because they haven't played anyone impressive yet, but they could be 3-0 if they had just ran the ball down, but they lost to the Jets, and that really hurt their positioning. Next category is, I have no idea about these teams. I have the Cowboys at 17, the Giants at 16, the Titans at 15, and the Colts at 14. The Colts really got a big boost this week because of how well Jacksonville played and because they beat Kansas City. I'm very suspicious of the Colts. They had one of the biggest jumps of ever in power rankings, other than the Jaguars this week, because Jacksonville had another amazing game, which kind of justified their loss last week. And then they beat Kansas City, who's a great team. And the Colts really don't look great, but they're 1-1-1, which is not bad right now. And I think that 14 is a pretty solid spot for them. I have the Titans at 15, which I think is fair. They're 1-2, but they did win a solid game this week against the Raiders. And their first week loss was against the Giants. Their other loss was okay. I probably should have the Giants over them, but Giants and Cowboys are playing tomorrow. I kept the Giants where they were from last week because they haven't played yet, so I kept them at 16. And between the Giants and the Cowboys, both of these teams look pretty similar right now. The Giants are 2-0, but their wins are unimpressive. The Cowboys are 1-1, but again, I don't really know what to think about them right now, especially with Cooper Rush at quarterback. Whoever wins tomorrow, I don't think that it's going to change the standings a whole lot. I think they're both very mid teams. At the very least, one of them is going to be around 20, and at the very highest, one of them is going to be around... They're going to stay in this tier no matter what. If the Giants lose, they'll stay in the tier. If the Cowboys lose, they'll stay in the tier. There's not really a whole lot of movement going on. Maybe the Giants will drop down to 20, but it's not really that drastic. At 13, we have the Arizona Cardinals. At 12, we have the Chargers. At 11, we have the Denver Broncos. And at 10, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. These are the strong contenders. The Jaguars played a phenomenal game against the Chargers this week, bringing them to the top 10. One of the biggest jumps ever in my power rankings. The Broncos, after getting their second win of the season, are up to 11. The Chargers are at 12, and the Cardinals are at 13. Big jumps for the Broncos and the Jaguars. Because of the win this week, and them beating Jimmy Garoppolo's 49ers as well, definitely makes up for the Week 1 loss against Seattle. Obviously, there's a lot of emotions in that game. Everyone wanted to win that game. That was kind of a toss-up no matter how good the teams are. So I think that that's kind of excusable. And then they barely beat the Texans, and now they're starting to get into the groove. They're starting to be the team I thought they're going to be. The Jaguars have really come on the last couple of weeks. They destroyed the Colts, and now they destroyed the Chargers. Only loss so far was Week 1 to Washington, but again, Trevor Lawrence, first game of his second season, makes sense. Week 1 is always excusable, and then they've been dominant the last couple of weeks against solid teams, number 12 and number 14. Chargers are number 12 because they did lose to Jacksonville, Second loss to a good team. They lost to Jacksonville. They barely lost to Kansas City, and they beat the Raiders. I still think they have a very strong team, but they can't be above Jacksonville right now. As for the Cardinals, this is just kind of the I beat the Raiders category. Cardinals also beat the Raiders, and they also had two very tough losses to Kansas City and another tough team. So yeah, that's why the Cardinals and the Chargers are at where they're at. They've played solid so far this year. The Cardinals have played better than expected, so I'm excited to see what the Cardinals do for the rest of the season. But those are my strong contenders for the season so far. I want to see more of. We have the Vikings, we have the Rams, we have the Ravens, we have the Packers, and we have the Bucks. Yes, the Buccaneers are above the Packers, the reasoning being that the Buccaneers' top 3 wide receivers were out this week. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Julio Jones, and I believe their 4th string was also out. And they only lost by 2. The Packers, I think, were missing a player as well, but still. That game should have been a lot more in Green Bay's favor if they are better than Tampa. I think that Tampa has the 5th best team in the league right now. The Ravens do have an argument for the 5th best team in the league right now, but they need a more impressive win. Patriots is not an impressive win. They lost to Miami, which was a tough game. But and they beat the Jets. So, because the Ravens don't have a more impressive win yet, the Buccaneers at least beat the Saints. I guess the Patriots-Saints are pretty similar, but yeah, that's why the Ravens are at 7. Really, the 5, 6, and 7 are kind of 5, 6, and 7 are kind of a tier, and then 8 and 9 are kind of their own tier. The Rams and the Vikings both had one bad game and 2 really solid games. So also, Kirk Cousins just can't play in prime time. So that's the reason why they lost that game. But yeah, the Rams and the Vikings have both had one really bad. All of these teams have just had one really bad game. That's pretty much it, except the Ravens. They haven't had a really bad game yet. But yeah, they're all pretty similar. They all have pretty solid offenses, and their defenses can hold their own. Finally, we have the NFL's elite. I have Miami at 1, the Bills at 2, the Eagles at 3, and Kansas City at 4. If you beat the best team in the league, you become the best team in the league. That's how my power rankings works. If you beat number 1 and you're if you beat number 1 and you're like number 30 and you accidentally beat them, you don't get to be number 1. If you're number 4 and you beat number 1, then you're the new number 1. Dolphins and Eagles are the only undefeated teams in the league. The reason why the Bills are above the Eagles is because they destroyed their first 2 opponents and then they lost by 2 to Miami. If you lose by 2 to number 1, then you can stay number 2. All of these teams are just clearly better than everyone else right now, and it's not even close. They have the most high-powered offenses, the most consistent teams. Kansas City lost to the Colts partially because of the penalty at the end of the game, which allowed the Colts to keep their drive going. But, yeah, not making excuses for Kansas City. They should have won the game anyways, but that's the reason why they're 4. But these are clearly the best teams in the league right now, and it's a little saddening as a Patriots fan to see that 1 and 2 are both in the AFC East. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoy the content. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll see you guys all in the next one. Peace.